Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Me again, Shannon Fox here, Devoted Pictures 2 channel. We got to talk about what's going on in Minnesota today. I have found out several new things, doing a little bit of investigative homework on Twitter and a couple other places, but most of the information I got for you today come from Twitter feeds. Ilhan Omar has been caught way back when by James O'Keefe for the ballot harvesting scheme, paying to play, or paying to vote, should I say. And we got a full version clip of that over on my Twitter channel. Top of the page, I'll actually reference you to it at one point during this video, and we'll play a 3-minute clip of it, which sums it up, but it doesn't give you all the details. But I remember when this came out, I watched about half of it, and I remember thinking, oh, why isn't she going to go to jail behind this? Because somebody in the video was actually implicating Ilhan Omar as the architect, the mastermind behind getting all these Somali community people to work together to count the votes and sell the votes, or pay people to register to vote, and all that got caught on film. But I won't spoil all that for you yet. Let's go ahead and get into a couple other things directly involved. I believe, before I get into that, Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar have to go to jail. Probably the lieutenant governor and several other people, including the attorney general, already implicated. Excuse me. Says Ilhan Omar wasn't even elected by Americans. She was elected by 80,000 Somalis that Obama dropped in Minnesota. And that is what the consensus is over here on X. Sounds like the truth to me. We'll go with that. But folks, I have got about 10 or 15 clips here to show you, short clips, and a few things to read here and there. I have to get my goggles out. But for the most part, if there's any justice in America, these people's gooses are cooked. There's 3 different fraud cases. Now we're talking about 4 because of what James O'Keefe has exposed way back when, and we're going to show you some of that. It says, whoa, James O'Keefe III, undercover footage, O'Keefe Media Group, from former Rep. Ilhan Omar, co-worker, saying Ilhan Omar came up with the paying people for votes. She, Ilhan Omar, the one who came up with all this, pay to vote. Ilhan Omar campaign staffer became precinct managers and counted the votes. Ilhan and this group, they spent a lot of money. Let's go ahead and watch this video. This is a crazy 3-minute version of the full version of the video, but you'll get the gist of it. If you want to watch the full version of this video, it'll be at the top of my Twitter page. Devoted Patriots 2, same channel as it is on YouTube. Project Veritas. And these are Somalians being busted, buying votes on film in Ilhan Omar's district, and admitting she's the architect of all this.
Has received an explosive piece of tape. The tape you're about to see shows a man buying a registration form for an absentee ballot from a voter, giving him, quote, pocket money, unquote, of $200 and expecting to collect his ballot when the voter receives it.
Getting him to register to vote, put it in the mailbox, and when he receives his voter registration, then the guy knows that now he'll get this voter registration card and his ballot, and the guy will be able to commandeer the ballot and vote for the candidate of his choice. Easy scam.
But that's illegal, why?
We don't care illegal.
How much are you receiving?
Good one.
She's the one who came up with all this.
So she did it.
She started this whole thing with the pay to vote.
Yeah. Ilhan group
So the people that work for Ilhan are actually counting the ballots, counting the vote.
And they become a manager in the prison too.
They walk with you to the booth, and then they vote. Oh, vote this guy, vote this guy, vote this guy. Vote even if you speak English.
So they're walking them to the booth and coaching them on who to vote for as well. So they're going at both ends. They're doing the mail-in ballot thing on the return of the ballot to the person's actual physical address, and they're probably paying people on site, like the homeless people, to show up and vote down ballot for the Democrats. I wonder how many states this is going on, because I know these Somalis and Haitians and people from Uganda and all over the world have been dropped in mass numbers in the middle of the night with these, what they were calling repatriated flights, all kept in secret for the most part. And now we find out there's that clusters of thousands of people in these communities, and a lot of them are new. They're not living here 20, 30 years. A good percentage of the, like 40, 50%, I'm guessing, of the Somalis in Minnesota are new residents, and I wouldn't call them residents. I would call them illegal aliens on our property. But I won't get into that. But Ilhan Omar, if this guy is telling the truth, should be investigated, should be called in for questioning, called in to testify as they build a case with James O'Keefe and this guy that was a staffer, obviously, that says, yeah, it was Omar that created this whole thing. Paying Al-Qaeda.
The reason she's fighting for Palestine is because of this guy. So it's all about money and power. And they want her to defend Israel.
This is James O'Keefe. You know me for exposing the truth and holding the corrupt elite responsible and accountable. However, today I want to tell you about protecting your own freedom, your finances. Before you buy any gold or silver, hear this.
No, we ain't doing all that. Buy your gold and silver from your local, reliable coin dealer. That's what I say. That's what I do. But you get the gist of it, folks. I have the full version of this video. Like I said, let me show you here. It's here on my channel, and it explains a lot more of Ilhan Omar's involvement. As a matter of fact, there is this Future Foundation that has been caught. These are the people that are involved in this fraud. Actually, definitely not alleged, but guilty parties involved. And they are Ilhan Omar's biggest donor in the state of Minnesota. So she is all but implicated. But if you see right here, I've got the 3-minute version on my channel. And then I've also got the, I think it's like 13-minute version. I'll show you. It's the top one. Y'all want to come on over. Because it's crazy. Yeah. Here's the 1344. It actually shows the people paying for the whole scheme to happen. All right, folks, let's get back to it. I hope all this exposure does more than just let us conservative knows how crooked the system is. I hope some of this stuff gets stopped in real time. But more than that, I hope these people get held accountable so they won't get to do it again. And maybe somebody will think twice before they try it next time. Okay. Now, this lady here is Minnesota's lieutenant governor. Now, the governor, Tim Walz, and the attorney general are both under investigation at this point. We'll get into that in about 2 clips down. But truth be known, Minnesota's lieutenant governor, she's a Wokey, Peggy Flanagan, Sounds Irish. Says Somalians are the fabric of our state and calls Trump a racist for exposing it. And we don't want to listen to her, but the point of the matter is, if this is her attitude towards Trump, that's fine. She's allowed to be a hateful Democrat. But if the governor knew what was going on and the attorney general was in on it, you can almost bet that the lieutenant governor had to know something as well. So can we get a Department of Justice one time look into Mr. Peggy Flanagan? Can we get her subpoenaed to Congress when they do start getting into this, when they actually start subpoenaing people behind this investigation? It's going to happen as well. It's already started. But I think the fraud is pretty much just wide open, exposed. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that they stole the money. They're saying $1 billion. What if they did that in 21 states? I believe that's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out that people were ejected in certain spots strategically. The 20,000 Somalians here in Ohio and the Haitians in Springfield. It's not an accident they put all these people together. They're trying to change the voting base in a particular area. Now, Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison, he has a couple of weird things to say, and I got 2 clips to show you involving this clown. But it says, AG Keith Ellison says there is nothing he would have done differently, involving the fact that they now know there's a ton of fraud going on in the state of Minnesota. That is a weird answer. Check this out.
I do want to ask you about the fraud scandal. I mean, because the president's comments seem at least in part fueled by, or he's talking about this fraud scandal that we mentioned earlier involving that charity called Feeding Our Future. The vast majority of these 70 defendants charged in the case were Somali. For perspective, those are nearly 80,000 Somalis in the state. How much, critics have said that state officials, including you and the governor, did not act fast enough or quickly enough to investigate charges of fraud against the Feeding Our Future and did little to flag their allegations to federal authorities. I know you said it was the federal government that didn't move fast enough. Is there something you wish you had done differently?
No, first of all, the Department of Education denied claims when questionable claims were made about these meals. My office went to court, explained that to the court. A judge actually found the department in contempt for denying claims. So
he's blaming the judge. He's saying the judge was so woke that he didn't want to hear about anybody that didn't qualify. He just wanted you to give him free stuff to everybody. Now, that's very good possibility that is true. But I don't believe he took it to court to fight to prevent the fraud. I believe he was in on it. Just my own personal opinion. And I'm glad that he just got cornered here by the CNN clown. But, yeah, that was the wrong answer. No matter what, it was actually just a guilty answer. I hate to see it, but these folks are busted. I'm glad to see that. I hate to see that so much fraud has been perpetrated on our country. Just in the last week, we found out about PPP loan fraud. We found out about funneling money to the Al-Qaeda of Somalia. I'm sure there was some fraud that allowed that money to slide out the back door. The food stamp, Medicaid, Medicare fraud going on, not just in Minnesota, but everywhere, becoming exposed. And then there's the Social Security fraud as well. And then there's the ballot harvesting scheme, which hasn't even been mentioned by mainstream media whatsoever, or not even Fox News at this point, but James O'Keefe exposed that a year ago. So that's 5 things that everybody in the state of Minnesota that's a politician that was paying attention probably had something to say about it, or they were in on it. And I just honestly have to believe a lot of them were in on it. And I think we'll find that out before it's all said and done. There's a whole lot of Tim Walz types in Minnesota taking the money. It was a cash cow to be able to keep a senator in an area because she has her own community that votes 100% for her and Democrats. And that's what the Democrats wanted to replicate all over this country. And so they literally put people by the thousands in patches all over the country. That's what always happened. And in Democrat states, they didn't look twice. In Republican states, especially like Texas and Florida, when they showed up here, a lot of times we shipped them out just because we were port of entry. And we couldn't keep them all here. No doubt about it. Yeah, this is James Comer. Got something to say about what's going on.
President Trump and Republicans are railing against Governor Tim Walz, and the House Oversight Committee, which has launched its own investigation into the fraud, is now requesting documents, records, and communications from both Walz and State Attorney General Keith Ellison after reports they and other state officials may have been warned and ignored those warnings, allowing this fraud to happen.
The state employees in Minnesota rang the bell, they blew the whistle that there was massive fraud, and yet Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, apparently turned a blind eye to that for fear of political retaliation from the large voting bloc of Somalis.
Yeah, close to 80,000 Somalis live in Minnesota. They have become a powerful voting bloc for Democrats, but there are now multiple federal investigations into this fraud. Folks close to those cases tell us that what we've seen so far may be just the tip of the iceberg.
Hey, watching that?
So they're saying that the Somali community is so powerful in their voter base because there's a clump of them there. They control the district, the county, that portion of the state. That gives them a little pull to be able to be criminals. So they're blaming it, literally blaming it on the Somali people, which they are at fault if they're doing all this fraud, the stealing and all this stuff. But when it's handed to them directly by the government, as they show up to this country, they don't feel like they're stealing. They just feel like, this is cool, they're giving me free stuff. Oh, and they give me a Social Security card, they tell me I can activate to get some more free stuff. I could do that. That's what happens, folks. Not to say a lot of these people aren't just horrible human beings or, for lack of a better term, uncivilized. But that's what we are actually dealing with. We've got hunter-gatherers all over our country. People from countries that 90% of the world doesn't speak their language. 95% of the world doesn't speak their language. And it's just a whole different way of life. I can't blame them for not wanting to live in such a shithole country, like Trump says, like Somali or somewhere. But it's not our job to bring them here and let them feed off the system. Just can't do it. We can't allow it. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous in the worst of ways. But the fraud is getting exposed in Minnesota, and what's going to happen after all this stuff comes out and everybody gets investigated and maybe somebody gets indicted? They're going to find out, oh, same thing happened in Ohio in this town or that town. And they're going to, oh, same thing happened in Nebraska. And we're going to find out in these 21 states that are holding out with their food stamp information. They're not trying to give up any information. But truth be known, they have to, being it's the Food Stamp Administration is federally funded. So that's going to come to a head sooner than later. But, excuse me, raspy tonight. So explain to me this, like I'm a 5-year-old. Why are none of these networks covering Tampon Tim's $1 billion, if not more, Somali terrorist organization connection scandal? Nightly news coverage of Minnesota fraud scandal. ABC, 0 minutes. CBS, 0 minutes. NBC, less than a minute. Wow. That's just the facts, folks. They don't want to talk about it. Why? Because it gives the Democrat Party a black eye. And it's obvious at this point to anybody that's paying attention. The mainstream media are all on Team Democrat. And no matter what that entails, that's scary. That's a pretty scary thought. Well, since the shooting the other day with the 2 National Guardsmen, Trump has started cracking down with ICE agents in areas where they know there's concentrations of people like these Somalis that are doing 80% of the crime in the community. And a big portion of them are here illegally. So I believe they sent over 100 ICE agents this morning to Minnesota to the Somali communities, going door to door. That's the news.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you. Federal agents are now on the ground in the Twin Cities, focusing on the Somali community and anyone who is in the country illegally. We know they have been stopping some folks out on the street asking for their IDs, also going door to door looking for specific individuals. All of this, as you mentioned, comes after those massive fraud schemes in Minnesota that involved mostly folks from the Somali community, fraudulently charging the state more than $1 billion for social services that were never performed. When Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who's become the face of the Somali community in Minnesota, was asked why the fraud got so out of control, she said this.
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
President Trump and Republicans are railing against Governor Tim Walz, and the House Oversight Committee, which has launched its own investigation into the fraud, is now requesting documents, records, and communications from both Walz and...
So here's my question. If Ilhan Omar income went from nothing when she got here to $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year over the last 3 or 4 years to worth $30 million in 2024. Where did she get $30 million in 2024? Not really none of my business, but I would be saying at this point, I bet she's a little worried about her books. And so somebody ought to be tracking her financial comings and goings, because if they don't, she's going to move that money, especially if she gets under investigation. These people aren't stupid. They know how to handle money in the most creepiest and clever ways. And I hate to think that Ilhan Omar's wealth, when she gets ready to go to prison, just somehow vanishes because somebody wasn't smart enough to say, hey, why don't we freeze her bank account now, since we know there's nothing she could have possibly done in Congress legally to be worth $30 million. That's just the facts, folks. I hope something gets done. I really do, because if she's under investigation, if she becomes under investigation behind this, if she becomes one of the many culprits like Tim Walz, which it looks like that's what it's coming to, because she's tied into these foundations that were screwing the pooch, screwing the taxpayer, should I say. It says it's been revealed that Minnesota AG Keith Ellison met with Somalis and fraudsters and got offered campaign contributions that he later accepted. So this guy was meeting with the Somali pirates, I'm guessing, of Minnesota. That's what we're going to call them, the Somali pirates of Minnesota.
Recently released audio recordings reveal conversations that happened between the Attorney General and individuals who were later implicated and in some cases convicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. In those recordings, the Attorney General...
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order.
Masons 124, paragraph 1, in debate, members must confine remarks to questions before the body and avoid personalities. The debate here is not any individual. It is the policy and the amendment.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General was asked in those recordings to use his authority to protect businesses under investigation for wrongdoing, and rather than distance himself or remain neutral to allow the legal process to unfold, he responded in those recordings, "Of course, I'm here to help."
Mr. Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, there was a point of order, and I didn't hear...
She's cock-blocking. She'll get past it.
For a ruling or any resolution of the point of order, was there a resolution to it?
I'll remind the body that there was no ruling made by the Speaker as to the point of order that was just stated. Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney General in those recordings even urged the individuals, let's go fight these people. He was offered campaign contributions during that meeting, contributions that he later accepted. The release of those audio recordings raises questions about what's going on in the Attorney General's office that go directly to the need to pass the legislation that we had previously debated, House File 20. Although he has insisted that nothing came of the meeting, his office blocks disclosure of closed investigative
point
data.
of order.
Masons 124.
The A11 will help ensure that what happens behind closed doors in the Attorney General's office sees the light of day. We can protect people's privacy while shining a light on what the Attorney General's office is doing, who is influencing that office, whether it's those under a criminal investigation, nonprofits, corporations, or billionaires with political agendas, because Minnesotans have a right to know when their Attorney General's office is working with them. Minnesotans have a right to know whether the Attorney General is telling the truth, that nothing came of that meeting. That's why the A11 is so important.
Damn. I like that guy. He was calling it out. It's obvious at this point that Minnesota leadership was in on it, taking the money, every one of them. He obviously admitted, the Attorney General in so many words has admitted that he didn't agree with it originally, but in the end, took the money anyway. Campaign contributions flowing in circles. Keeping people in power, and all the people that want power donate to their cause, try to come up, be a part of it, fundraising. I have no idea how the Somali community fundraises, but I imagine they're pretty tight people as far as sticking together. And so when one decides to vote and they talk it over with their family, next thing you know, they probably all decide to vote, or maybe by design. They're Democrats. I don't know. But it looks like all the Somalians in this country so far that I have experienced seeing on the internet are very anti-American. And at this point, that's Democrat. Here's Ilhan Omar promoting the Safari restaurant in Minneapolis for feeding kids. This is the feeding the kids scam, one of the three fraud scams that they're under investigation for right now in Minnesota. Says the owner, who donated to her campaign, was convicted in the Feeding Our Futures $250 million fraud scheme. Feeding Our Futures was the name of this program where they were supposedly going to feed all these starving children, and I think it was mostly just a front, steal money. They stole hundreds of millions of dollars from hungry children. The money was flushed in through the government and then flushed out through their little grimy, curry-smelling hands. Listen to this crap.
horta aad iyo aadaan ugu faraxsanahay in maanta safaari aan soo gaarnay sida dadka badan ay u og yihiin ciyaalkeena.
I'm very happy to be with you young kids around the world. 20 million who are in school. Kids only get their food from school, so we get a chance to create a law called the Meals Act that makes it easy in this time of a pandemic for those kids who aren't in school, who are at home, to not starve, so their families could get a chance to get food and go to those places where food is being given out. So I'm very thankful for Safari. So I'm very blah, 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 blah. So happy the food's being given out, yada, yada, yada. What happened to all the money? That's a whole $250 million, a whole lot of feeding. I mean, that is endless feeding. $250 million, you could probably feed all the homeless in the country for a week. Probably for a month or a year. I don't even know, but that's an astronomical amount of money. to be sending off. No checks and balances, no receipts, and the money probably slid through, you said. Just guessing. Now, folks, this lady right here just took the cake. Sometimes I get over on Twitter and find clips like this. Sometimes I'm over on X, and the Twitter clips are shared over here, Instagram, whatever it is. But this lady is calling it out. She's from Ohio, and she is saying, it ain't just Minnesota. Check it out.
Come see Columbus, Ohio, fraud investigators. If you go to the government-assisted housing areas, you will find that most of the housing is Somalians. I would say about 80% of the government-assisted housing in Columbus is occupied by Somalians. And the parking lot is occupied with a whole bunch of brand new cars. And the women walking around have designer purses with EBT cards, and they have Apple iPhones stuck up in their hijabs. Yeah. And then go to the businesses that are owned by the men. Because see, what happens is when you have a restaurant or when you have a little corner store and you have a couple of wives and you only have to claim one, then that means the other wives get EBT cards. And you can use those EBT cards to buy food for your store or your restaurant. Yeah. Or what you can do is you can get a home health aid company. And then you only hire Somalians to work the home health aid. And what you do is you just make sure their paperwork looks right. It don't have to be right, but you just make sure it looks right. And then you send them off for those home health aid jobs. Y'all don't want to talk about fraud.
She's right. You know, this probably happened in all the Democrat states and in a lot of blue cities and red states as well. We'll probably never know how much money out of the $7 trillion that was spent during the Biden administration, how much of it got stolen. I'd say half to 3/4, maybe. I don't know. It's probably an astronomical number. But we've got a great idea here from the great Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett says he has sent a letter asking President Trump to halt all disbursements to NGOs over their role in importing millions of third world and facilitating Somali fraud that funded terrorism. Great idea, Tim. Love Tim Burchett. NGOs facilitated the influx of millions of immigrants from third world countries into the communities across nations. NGOs not only support abortion and open border immigration, but they support the whole transgender movement, the human trafficking on every level. These people just not good for the country all the way around. They even support groups like Antifa. That's what I do have to believe, just probably indirectly. So since 1992, NGOs have worked tirelessly to import roughly 80,000 Somalians into Minnesota, a state located in the American heartland. This invasion has fueled rampant fraud within the Somali community with the over $1 billion stolen, and I bet the number's a lot higher, from child nutrition and social service programs, including Social Security, and laundered into terrorist organizations. So Tim Burchett is asking trying to become leader of the Doge committee subcommittee in the House. He wants to run that. Great, that would be great, because he's a straight shooter, and he's sending a letter to Trump directly to say, can we shut off all the money to the NGOs till we figure out where the hell the money's going? Since we know we're funding terrorism still today, even though you shut down, you said all these NGOs are still getting a fat paycheck, and some of them not just hate us, but are still working against us each and every day. We can't be funding that stuff. Can't be doing it. All right, folks, got a couple more little clips for you, and we will get the heck out of here together. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful day. A little bit of a chilly day here in Waco, Texas, about 50 degrees. Not too nice. Like I said, folks, here's the full 13-minute version of this James O'Keefe clip. I do encourage everybody to come watch this if you're interested in how many times this guy says in just one 13-minute clip that Ilhan Omar controlled the city council, controlled the vote counters, controlled the harvesting, controlled the every aspect of the voting system. Bad news all the way around. It's a rigged game there. There's no doubt about it. And I'm glad it's getting exposed as a part of this whole thing. So we've now got 5 possible real crimes that have been perpetrated on the American people by Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, Joe Biden, and so many more, including a lot of the Somali community. They're part of the problem too. They got to go. They don't love this country. We don't need them. Love it or leave it. And if you're here illegally, bad boys are coming for you, sweeping the streets today. We'll be seeing more results of that over the next 24, 48 hours, I'm sure. That's what I got for you today, folks. Like, subscribe.